On page $1, between I came to the end of that. And we're primarily discussing, in general, we're talking about his harvest, the creation, and how a lakus is ultimately a participant and is contained in the creation. This is through the faculty of Atzilus, this is the Olam ha-Atzilus and the chochmah. And then we're saying, despite the fact that chochmah is a keli for the oil leki, for oil insef, yet still it also has the element of being a created entity. In what sense? Not a created sense like in Bria, that it should be an independent presence, but created entity in the sense that it does not carry along its source where it is emanating from. This is what it says. Chochmah may Ayin timotzi. Chochmah is like a find. Despite the fact that
chochmah is like a what?
Find, something that you find.
Okay.
Despite the fact that what you have in chochmah is really the oil the oil that from above, but you do not have the sense that this is one entity. It's as chochmah is a presence, a divine presence, and yet you do not see its source. Me'ayin. Where does it come from? Where does it come from does not mean who creates it. It means it does have, in a certain sense, an independence. It does not directly represent its source. Ayin. Its source is like Ayin, like a non-entity. It's like a mitzvah, like something that you find where you don't know where it came from. That's why the Pasuk says, "Chochmah me'ayin timotzi." And the principle in this is, as we discussed from various angles, there is what's called a ha-arah. A ha-arah means a functional reflection of the essence. But it's a proper reflection of the essence, but it's only a reflection. on the functional level, it has the same effect as the essence, but it is not the the essence itself. Yeah. Okay.
You said there's a ha-arah saying chochmah. Is that a ha-arah?
There's a subtle thing difficult to understand. We say chochmah is independent from its source, but it also represents it.
Right.
It's
Right. So this is what the missing link there, the missing point is that the chochmah is a representative of its source because of its bitul.
okay.
So that which comes from the source into the chochmah is nothing. There's nothing lost in the transition because of the bitul quality of the chochmah, not because it's the very same thing. I want to. Just occurred to me a proper, again, a moshel, it's something that has a kinship to this. We always mention, the Gemara says, Odom shein Beis in Odom. A house and a human being are very deeply, intricately related. A human being without a house is not a full-fledged human being, not with any other. Now, the human being, in addition to having a house, being in the house, he also has objects in the house, all the furnishings, and generally, the human being owns many things. The things that a person owns ownership of an object is reflective of the presence of the human being. But it's reflected but nevertheless the object is a separate entity from him. He owns it, and the principle that he owns it is an element of him. But the ownership, this is like a ha-arah of the presence of the person. When you see a house, a home, since we say Odom shein Beis in the Odom, it goes along with the dweller of the home. Whereas an object is also owned by him. And this is like a ha-arah of the principle that a person can spread beyond his initial presence. But the spreading into the house, into the home, spreading into for the object is not similar. A person can be without the object, but he cannot be without the home. Again, this will also come up again. This is just another notch in getting this point. It is the same thing, it is united, and yet it's separate. And the principle that it's separate, it's not on par, it's not the same level as the essence. The essence and the home is not separable. The essence and his and the ownership of his object are separable.
So we differentiate the home from the object that are in the home. Like, so how does it relate to what we were saying before? It represents and it's independent.
Right. So the objects are also representative of the human seichel.
Yeah.
But they're only representative of the seichel. It is not the actual seichel itself. The home is the person. Without the home, the person is not a person. As I said, and yet the principle of ownership means that a person is there together with the object. Okay, let's continue on page Tesvot.
Hey, what?
The principle in this is, I don't know if you, is that in chochmah we actually receive the real thing. We received, just like by Matan Torah we spoke last night, we received the real thing. But the reason we are able to receive it is not because we can absorb it, but because of bitul. We take what is given. So we spoke about this.
Again, the reason you can receive it is because of bitul,
Yeah.
not because you can take it.
Right. But this bitul, see that's another point which needs to be pointed out. This bitul is a chochmah element. The reason that chochmah has this bitul is not because that chochmah is a non-entity. The reason that chochmah has this bitul is because chochmah has this wisdom of that which of seeking to relate to that which is way above itself. This is what has this bitul. Like we mention all the time, that the pikach, the wise man amongst all the greeters of the king, he says, I choose the king himself. I pick the king himself. It's not because the king had thrown an awe upon him and he's bottled to the king. No. It's because he is wise and he understands, he senses that there is a value way beyond anything that he can identify. which is in the presence of the king himself. Okay, so let's see if we can start by page Tesvav. U-be-torah-ohr dibra maskel posach v'yoh. In Torah-ohr, you know, Torah-ohr, this is the Alter Rebbe's Maimorim, and it goes according to the weekly Pasha. And there is one Maimor, it's called Posach v'yoh. This Maimor is actually in Pashas Vayera. And this Maimor is one of the classic Maimorim that are discussed everywhere, talking about, they say the Chassidus and so forth, and the correlation between Oiris and Kalim. So, Torah Posach v'yoh, Kosev, he writes there, the Yoiser Mishein Aroich B'riyo L'gabei Atzilus, Ein Aroich Atzilus L'gabei Oiris Oiboru. Superficially, we would say, as we discussed, B'riyo is a full-fledged creation. Atzilus is an emanation from its source. So you would think that Atzilus is more closely representative of its source than Bria of Atzilus. Bria is like the creation itself. The actual creation, like we gave our Moshel. Bria is like you built a table. Table is the human sense of what a table is about. The actual presence of an independent entity that stands like a table. The sense that a human being has for a table, this is something which is an emanation from his nefesh. So you would think that this is a direct reflection of the nefesh. So the Alter Rebbe says no, that the Bria is distant from the Atzilus. This is like the actual creation of the table versus the sense of what a table is internally. But the sense, the initial sense of the table, on the way to Atzilus, in comparison to the Etzem, is much more distant than the Bria from Atzilus. Let us try and focus in on this. The Alter Rebbe says that Bria L'gabei Atzilus is ein aroich. It's a real creation. Whereas, nevertheless, Atzilus versus its source, Ein Sof, is even more distant than Bria from Atzilus. Having used the mashal that we did, we can actually, so to speak, identify with this statement. Using the coarse mashal of a table. A table is a standalone entity that a person uses. Superficially, it appears only that it almost that a table is just a util presence that helps a person in his functional level. You have something in your hand, you have a place to put it down. It's like an afterthought. Where can I put this down? Oh, put it down over here. It's not something united with the person. Yet we have explained that it is united with the person. It is a reflection of the human quality, human stature. But it is a function of quality, and it has been rendered in a different level, in a different world. On the practical level, separate from the person. So that if you come into a home and there is a table there is a correlation between the human being and the table. It's reflective of the human being. But again, you're saying, oh, there's a functional element in the table also. It's not just a reflection of the human being. And it's conceivable that you would lose sight of the connection to the human being altogether. You would think it's only a functional thing, because it's in a different world. The table, as it is present in the home, has already been translated into material, into wood and metal. Not the way it is contained in the source, in the mind and the soul of the person. Now let's go further up into the soul of man, into his intellect. We're saying that in the fact that in his intellect, he senses the significance, formulates the idea of a table. This is reflective of his soul. As we spoke many times, so the status of the human being, a table is a reflection of that. We discussed it in many details. So which one of these two levels are closer to one another? The factual table that's made of wood versus the human being, or the thought in the human being, that the recognition in the human being of a table versus his nefesh, of what a human soul is. And this is what the Alter Rebbe is pointing out. You may think that this is ruchnis and this is ruchnis, where this goes into the gashmis. So it's not the distance there in gashmis is much more different. She says no. Gashmis from the ruchnis is very distant. But the distance between the soul itself and the identification that as it comes in the intellect of, so to speak, the functional element of the table, are much more distant. Because the table is actually reflecting only the essence of the nefesh on a functional level. It's not the essence itself. Whereas when you take this functional element and you translate it on the practical world, that's all it is. You translate the same thing on the practical world. Are we there? How about you? Okay. This was a kind of a motion that fell into our laps. We were talking all the time about the human being in a table, and it lends itself to being able to explain very subtly in Chassidus. So this is the Alter Rebbe says in Pasuk Eliyahu that Bria, relative to Atzilus, is a different, it's a creation, it's a different entity. Yet it is closer to Atzilus than Atzilus is to its source, to Ein Sof. The human soul, which is the source of all his wisdom, this soul, it does not even belong in the world. This is a godly soul. This is something which God puts into him. Like we said last night, life is something being forced into him from the source of life. It's a completely different realm. And then the Alter Rebbe says and this is what we say, Ein arech lecha ba'olam hazeh. Saying davening, Shabbos, Ein arech lecha ba'olam hazeh, that there is no proximity to you ba'olam hazeh in this world. And then we say further ba'olam haba and so forth. That first we say Ein arech lecha ba'olam hazeh. There is no comparison to you ba'olam hazeh. The hainu, which means to say, Sha'anachnu b'nei olam hazeh hagashmi, that we who belong or part of olam hazeh hagashmi in this physical world, ein lonu leimar. We cannot say shekmoi sho'olam hazeh, that just like this world, who ke'ayin u'kulo neged ha'olam ha'elyin mikulam, this world is like nothing in comparison to the higher world, the world that's above all worlds. Shu ruchni me'oid. This higher world is very ruchni. And then it says in parentheses, hakavona, where the reference over there, the highest world, the highest world, which is very ruchni. Hakavona, the reference over there is aloylam ha'atzilus. This is reference to olam ha'atzilus, shuzehu olam ha'elyin, which is the upper world. The olam is biyah because the worlds of biyah nikroim olam satachtin. They are called the lower worlds. Ukiyodua, as is known, the Rabbeinu Shmo said that the Alter Rebbe hoyo oimer al atzilus elyin. When he referred to Atzilus, he would say the Elyon, the upper world. So we could not say that just as our world is incomparable to the upper world, Cain, likewise, ha'olam ha'elyon, hazeh, this upper world, who kulo neged ein sof baruch, is like nothing in comparison to ein sof baruch. This, so Olam Hazeh would be a moshel for the in the distance, in comparability between the higher world and Ein Sof. So for this we say no Ein Arich, Elo Ein Arich l'chol klal. At Ayud there is no comparison at all. The Dama is bitul zeh, bitul zeh. To compare the bitul of the lower world to relative to the higher world, and then the higher world to Ein Sof, there's no comparison. It's not the same kind of bitul. There is no way that from the Olam Hazeh we can have a sense of what the bitul of the higher world of Ein Sof itself. Okay, this is continue on. We will take a break till tomorrow morning, Mr. Hashem. All right.